will exalt my throne. It's taken from Isaiah 14:13 and 14, where it says, I will ascend into heaven, and this is obviously Lucifer speaking. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit on the mount of the congregation on the farthest sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like Most High. And in Ezekiel 28:17 it says that your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. So the normal understanding, especially in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, but not only, is that Lucifer's original sin was pride, and they take these two verses to confirm it. And it is pride indeed. I mean, look at these words. I will ascend, I will exalt my throne, I will sit on the mount of the congregation, I will ascend above, I will be like the Most High. I, right? So
your heart was lifted up too.
Yeah, I read. Yeah, your heart was lifted up. But if you notice that verse from Ezekiel 28:17, it says, "Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty," and then it says, "You corrupted your wisdom." Okay, and we saw how the word corrupted in the Bible has always to do with this duality, where God had something pure, and Satan corrupted and made it impure, and that the symbol is so perfect in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, where you have something that's good and something that's evil. You have a corrupt, a mixture, not a pure white, but a black and white system.
Would you say that pride resulted from the iniquity that began in him?
Yes, and that's what we want to show.
Okay.
So we know that by iniquity filling him and all the things that happened to him, he became the opposite of Jesus, of whom we read in Philippians 2:5-8, where it says, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant, and coming in the likeness of men. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, but even more to the point of death on the cross."
So what this passage that we just looked at in Philippians 2:5-8, what it is showing us, and everybody talks and says that's the condescension of Jesus Christ or the humbling of Jesus Christ. Yes, no question or doubt of that. But we must understand that this wasn't something that was like a self-sacrificing thing on his part. This is exactly who he is. Can you understand what it stated? It's not that he had to become this way. He already had that kind of a heart in him. So for him, by becoming this way, was not something that was unnatural.
It wasn't out of character.
See, it wasn't out of,
already
yeah,
in his
exactly.
character. Yes.
See? So he was very much already in this when he did what he did, according to what Paul states in Philippians 2:5-8.
Yeah, he would not have offered to come and be the lamb slain if he hadn't had that as his character.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
See? That's why it does. See, when we look at the passages, because he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, God never changes. We must understand that if he changed to become this, then God is changeable. See, but he's not. And those passages that are in the scriptures clearly showing that God does not change, which means to say circumstances does not change God's behavior towards us. He still operates by agape love.
So it was Lucifer that changed.
Yes.
It's like you were pointing out yesterday or the day before that he was perfect at first, and
Yes.
when he changed, he became unperfect.
Exactly.
And he became changeable.
Change it up, yeah,
See?
sure.
Right? He
Yeah.
became dualistic, so that
Right.
he was one way with a certain circumstance and a certain, yeah.
Right, and so if God changes, what's he going to change to? Is he going to change into something better than what he already is?
Yeah, there you are. Good point.
That's not possible.
Yes,
Yeah.
see?
Or
Yeah.
worse than what he is.
Right, that's the only other.
And that's what Satan has made us believe.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
See, Satan lives by situation ethics. Satan's system of good and evil is situation ethics. God does not operate by situation ethics.
So the God does not change. We need to really trust him in that he does not change.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because if we don't trust him, then we just become like Satan.
We're making him a liar.
Yeah.
That's what First John says.
Good.
Let me ask a question about Ezekiel 28:17. Are you gonna touch on the next phrase after
We will,
corrupted
yes.
thy wisdom? It says, by reason of thy brightness.
Yes, we're going to go
Do you
there.
have, Ari, you're going to go there?
You got it in there.
I hope I do, but do you have a comment on that?
Just a question, I would
Okay.
just like to, I don't really understand it, I'd like you to expound on that if you
Okay.
could. It
Um,
sounds like that's the reason, if I'm looking at the English correctly, let me just read it. Thine heart was lifted up because of thy beauty, thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. There's like two parallel phrases there,
Right.
because of thy beauty and by reason of thy brightness.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, in some versions it reads, your heart was lifted up, means you were proud, okay? Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. So what we have to understand again, if we take, and this is sometimes we hear that when we talk in terms of his beauty, that it is his physical appearance, no doubt, I'm not denying his physical appearance, but his beauty was also his character, what he had.
Okay, we're gonna get into that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, sorry.
So let's go systematically
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we
that's
can see
fine,
it.
that was my question, are you gonna touch on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no question that he became proud. We're not saying that he didn't. The texts are clear. But what was involved in this desire, in his desire for exaltation? What caused his pride? Okay? The question is, was pride the heart of the problem, or was it a byproduct of something else? Okay? So Lucifer, let's look at it. Lucifer wanted to exalt what? What does the text say? What did he want to exalt?
His heart was lifted up because of his beauty.
No, the
No,
other
but
one.
from the Isaiah
Oh,
passage.
Isaiah. From
Isaiah
Isaiah
14.
14, 13, and 14. What is it that he wanted to exalt?
I will exalt my throne above
Okay.
the stars of God.
So he wanted to exalt his throne. Now, what's involved in a throne?
Rulership, leadership, authority,
Okay.
power.
Power,
Dominion.
Sovereignty.
dominion, sovereignty.
Can you run a throne without a law?
No.
So when you have a throne, you're going to have a
A
law.
lawgiver.
Yeah, you have to have a law. God's throne is God's law. So Lucifer's throne had to have law.
So he wanted to rule the universe above God, right? I mean, he wanted to take over God's position as the ruler of the universe. And the word rule itself, how would you define the word to rule?
That should be God's, he owns that, he rules everything.
Yes, but what does it mean to rule? What is
You rule on it by a law. You have
by
to-
law? It
yeah.
implies law,
Yeah.
right? So it's very clear. The word throne opens up this whole scenario for us to look into. So he wanted to elevate his law, basically, when it comes down to it. And a throne is just a chair, which is a symbol, right, of a king. And in order for a king to be a king, he needs to have subjects, and he needs to have guidelines, and these are the laws that he has. And then the Bible also uses the word scepter. And what does the scepter mean? What's the meaning of the scepter in the Bible? And in the Bible, the word scepter can be interchangeable with the words rod and staff as well. Okay? But their meaning is the same.
Law.
Look at this
Law,
verse. Yes,
exactly.
look at Genesis 49:10. And here's some parallelism. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet. until Shiloh comes, okay?
And to him
And to him shall be the obedience of the people. So this is a prophecy about Jesus, that he is the lawgiver, and the people will acknowledge him as such. Okay, so and other texts associate the word throne and the words throne and scepter with righteousness. And we looked at that word righteousness in as opposed to the word iniquity, that they were both on the same level. For instance, Psalm 45:6, it says, "Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. A scepter of righteousness is the scepter of your kingdom." Okay?
Well, that makes sense because law and right go together if it's the correct kind of law,
exactly,
divine law.
exactly.
Yes, justice, the
See?
true justice, right?
And God's law is always the very essence of his being. It's not something that you can separate from God. So the law of agape love, or God's law, is the very essence of his being.
So we have to realize that God is the creator, Satan is a creature, and Satan is not a creator. So everything that he has is like a mirror image of God, but it's in the dark and God is in the light. Okay? So everything that Satan comes up with, he's copying his creator, but in a different way, not in the same way.
See, like God had his law, so he had to come up with his law.
Right,
And that's how it is. But his law is darkness, God's law is light.
right. Okay, so in Revelation 19:15, we read that out of Jesus' mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should strike the nations, and he himself will rule them with a rod of iron. What does that mean, the rod of iron?
His law that does not change or bend.
Exactly. It's and that's agape love. Now you can take this with the mind of good and evil, with a mind of violence, and interpret it as with a rod of iron that uses punishment and violence, right? So it depends how your mind interprets things. So the rod of iron is the Bible's way of saying that God's law is strong. It is as strong as iron, and it is a way of saying that Lucifer's attempt to get rid of it will never succeed, because God's law is everlasting, and that's good news, right? So, as a covering cherub, Lucifer, as a protector of this everlasting law, Lucifer was well acquainted with the fact that God ruled the universe through a law. Even though the angels weren't, they didn't know, but he did. So his desire to ascend into heaven and exalt his throne above the angels of God meant he wanted to put God's law aside and implement his own. He developed a desire to be the lawgiver. He hoped that his method of governance would not only rival but surpass God's law of agape love. But his throne was a throne of iniquity, not righteousness. As we saw in Psalms 94:20, shall the throne of iniquity, which devises evil by law, have fellowship with you.
What was that reference again?
Psalm 94:20. Go ahead.
Well, when in Psalm 94:20, we have discussed this before too, we'll do it again. Shall the throne of iniquity, which devises evil by law, have fellowship with you, fellowship with God. So this is Satan's law of iniquity, which he devised, and it does not have any kind of fellowship with God whatsoever.
So Satan's law is changeable and bendable, and it just doesn't have the,
It sways back and forth
Yeah.
between good and evil.
it's so opposite to his law.
So let's say you do something good, I'm going to reward you. But if you do something bad, I'm going to punish you. And that's how I'm going to keep you under my control. Or I may offer you a reward to make you do something good. But we're going to get into that more, okay? Okay,
Or I might offer you a reward to do something bad.
yes.
We see that when we hear
That's what those
stories
are.
of people who sell their souls to Satan for wealth and fame and things like that. We
Yeah.
see that type of thing.
Yeah, But it's everywhere, even in like our education system. We learn things in order to get a letter grade. You know, we learn for that reward, not
Exactly.
because we love to learn,
The
right?
CAT tests are to tell whether their indoctrination is working or not.
That's right. So, okay, so this verse, actually, I want to look at the word devises evil by law. Shall the throne of iniquity which devises? I want to look at that word in the Hebrew. It's the Hebrew word is yatsar. It's yatsar. And it means to mold something into a form, especially as a potter. The idea from that word is that of squeezing something into shape. Okay? So Lucifer squeezed evil into a form, a shape, a framework. That framework is his moral law. So evil is embedded in his law. And thus the law itself is evil. So the question that the psalmist asks here is, can an evil throne that uses an evil law have any fellowship, which is chabar, to join with God? And the answer is no, it cannot. Because remember what Jesus said in Hebrews chapter 1, I believe, that he loved righteousness but hated iniquity. Yes, Hebrews 1:9, sorry about that. And then it says, you have loved righteousness and hated iniquity. Therefore God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness more than your companions. So, on this topic, Ellen White says the following. Satan wished to change the government of God to fix his own seal to the rules of God's kingdom. See that?
Yes, could you repeat that?
Yes. Satan wished to change the government of God to fix his own seal to the rules of God's kingdom.
What is his seal? His law.
So,
His seal is his law, yeah.
so Satan wanted to put his own seal
To the
on
rules.
God's law,
Mm-hmm.
which to me would say that he's trying to like take
Usurp.
authority over it. There you go, usurp the law.
Mm-hmm.
To what the law?
Usurp.
Yes.
And we touched a little bit about that in the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments is God's precepts for a good life and for, you know, it's his, the underlying principle under the Ten Commandments is love. If you love your neighbor, you're not going to steal his wife or anything. You're not going to kill them. But Satan takes that Ten Commandments and says, don't do this, because if you do, you'll be punished. And so now you follow the law out of fear and out of force rather than out of love. Okay? So whenever you see any kind of force, coercion, fear, that's coming from Satan's.
It also seems like his way is external,
Mm-hmm.
like following the checklist rather than being transformed by the renewing of our minds. So it's inside out.
Right, exactly.
And the word that comes to my mind is contaminate. Satan wants to contaminate the pure.
Yes.
Yeah,
That-
it's ugly. Yeah.
Yes, and the Bible uses that a lot. It uses the word corruption for that. And Jesus always referred to the demons as unclean, the unclean spirits. Why are they unclean? Because they're not pure. They don't have that purity of agape love. They have the mixture of good and evil. They're contaminated with that. Okay. Okay, so okay, you want to do it?
Once Lucifer devised his law of iniquity, he began promoting it, peddling it to the intelligent beings in the universe. This was his traffic, his merchandise, the concept, the corrupt principles of his administration.
Corrupt.
It must have been something like an election campaign. In fact, the Greek word for war used in Revelation 12:9, there was war in heaven, is polemic. Lucifer instigated a massive polemic which is still wildly raging on even now here on earth. And this polemic is a debate or a heated discussion, whatever it may be. Lucifer's highest ambition was to sit on the mount of the congregation. What
Hold on,
con-
there's a question.
I just wanted, something that goes to the discussion we're having, does a polemic imply two,
Two
a
sides?
tug of war between two sides?
Two sides.
Yes.
Yes.
No, it's this way, no, it's this way.
Yes,
Yes.
of course. Has
Rather
to be.
than, oh, maybe there's a third option.
Yes, well, that's exactly the battle that went on. The war in heaven was not a militaristic war. It was this polemic between Lucifer and Michael.
I just want to see the definition of the word polemos here in the Greek. To bustle, a warfare, literally or figuratively, but it does come from the word, oh, I thought it came from another word, another Greek word. But anyway, it's a battle, a fight, but that's where we even get the words politics. Okay.
And what is the English word?
Pardon?
And what was the English word that,
Polemic.
Polemic, P-O-L-E-M-I-C.
that's the Greek?
No, that's the
No,
English.
that's the English.
Polemos.
Polemic is.
Polemos is the Greek.
Polemos
Okay, I got it.
is the
Thank you.
Greek.
Okay.
Polemic is the English.
So
Thank
it's a philosophical battle then.
Yes, for
exactly.
sure.
It was a
Yeah,
philosophical
and
battle.
see how Satan has deceived even in that, like with the Star Wars, where you have Luke Skywalker, the good guy, against Darth Vader, who's his father,
Yeah.
and the good guy is fighting the bad guy, but they're both using violence, and see the deception there. And all the films you see, the good guy is always killing the bad guy. And that is iniquity. And that's why iniquity is actually abounding at the end time, because we're being programmed to think that the good side needs to kill the bad side.
And it also occurs to me that's why right now, even now, the whole world wanders after the beast.
Yes.
Because we're all stuck in this system
Yes,
that we have no idea that we've been stuck in.
yes.
Exactly.
You have a question? A comment?
Quick comment.
Yes.
It's off topic, I guess, but I have friends who are Amish Mennonite, and this is one of their beliefs. They're pacifists.
Yes,
They would rather let somebody kill them
that's God's
and
way.
reflect God's character than fight.
Yes, that is true.
So
There
there
are.
are people in
There are
our
people.
world today that are struggling to live
Yes.
Yes.
according to this
Yes.
principle.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think
Anabaptist, Amish Mennonite people.
Amish.
Isaiah 14:13.
We are
Can you look
advanced.
for
Isaiah what?
14:13?
They really believe, yeah, they're pacifists. They really believe in pacifist.
Where's 13?
Yes.
Yeah, they don't believe in killing anybody for any reason at all.
For
even
you
yourself.
said in your heart.
Okay.
We're going to read from Isaiah, 5 minutes. We're going to read from Isaiah chapter 14, verse 13. Go ahead.
Okay, so in verse 13 it says, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne, and we've already seen that, above the stars of God, and the stars are the angels. In Revelation it clearly defines who the stars are. I will also sit on the mount of the congregation. What do you think that is?
The morals.
The law.
Okay,
Look at
one person at a time. I'm sorry. You
Look
had
at it.
something?
Look at it in Hebrew.
One of the words in there, the mount of the congregation, one of the words in there is moed, or moedim. And we need to understand that pretty carefully.
Congregation.
Congregation?
I think so.
Yep,
And what does
Congregation
that
is-
mean?
appointed
Feast.
time,
Appointed time?
Oh, feast time? I see.
appointed time.
He's
Goes
gonna
back
take
to
charge.
Genesis 1:14. It's first mentioned in Genesis 1:14.
Okay.
Think of Halloween, St. Patrick's Day, Easter, Christmas.
Okay, but
Versus-
let's go back to this time, because at that time there was no such thing as Halloween and all that. This was in heaven, right?
I have,
What was the congregation at that time in heaven?
In my,
I bet they have Sabbaths there.
Sabbaths?
Yeah. they had-
Okay.
I have divine assembly of judgment.
Amen. Oh, judgment. Well,
Okay. A
assembly.
divine assemblage.
Divine assemblage
Okay.
of judgment.
An appointment, a time or season. Okay. A place of meeting.
Which is above the
So
stars.
if this
So
was
it's
when
above them.
Lucifer, okay, let's keep in mind that this was happening. This is describing what was happening as
Yeah.
Lucifer was rebelling.
Yes,
So what kind of congregation would there be in heaven?
above the stars of God. So it would be the stars of God.
But
Angels.
What would it include? But it also would include the sons of God, which are mentioned in Job, who came, and I'm going to touch on that.
there are no human being at that time.
No
It's
human
only
beings.
angels.
So who were the sons of God?
The stars.
Did God only create angels?
No,
No,
it's
cherubim,
not,
all of them.
it didn't exist yet.
There are other
It didn't
intelligent
exist
beings in
yet.
the universe.
So every planet in this infinite universe that we don't know how big it is, we don't know how many planets are out there, every one of them must have somebody that was somewhat equal to Adam and Eve, don't you think?
I think they were just angels at that time because we couldn't comprehend the human beings.
No, there were no human beings, but there were other planets
Yes.
with intelligent
Other
beings
beings,
in them.
Yes.
I don't know what kind of beings they are.
Well, God created them. They're God's
Yeah,
people.
we're not told, but we know that there were other intelligent beings in the universe. We don't know
Yes.
what they look like or any of that.
So-
So this would be the assemblage of, say, not only angels, but the
Representatives.
representatives from all the other planets. Say they're all human beings on all other planets, but they're human beings that haven't fallen.
Yes.
Yes.
If that's, or some kind of, whatever.
Something like that. We
Whatever
don't
lives
know.
on the other planets.
They were intelligent
Exactly.
beings, yes.
Some kind of
Yeah,
exactly.
beings.
So
Okay.
Lucifer wanted to rule over this assemblage. Being, you know, there was an appointed time when they would all meet
Mhm.
and you know.
He wanted to rule over everyone that our Father created.
So
So
think
far.
about, okay, let's think about the UN, okay?
Yeah.
We have different nations all over the world, but they all congregate in one place, the United Nations, and that's the assembly. That's their mount of the congregation, if you want to think of it that way. He wanted to rule over that, okay? In the book of Job, Job 1:6-7, it says, "Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them." Now, this clearly is in heaven, because they were going to present themselves before the Lord. There are no human beings involved here, because no human beings have gone to heaven in that capacity. And Satan went along with as well with the sons of God. Why was Satan there?
He was a
Representative.
representative.
He was, yes,
Adam and Eve, when they sinned, they gave
they abdicated.
exactly.
Well, doesn't Satan go back and forth from earth to heaven? He had an option.
But he had that option because he took over the head, he took over the position as head of the earth. When
Because
Adam,
Jesus said he's the prince of this world. He's the ruler of this world.
yes, because when Adam and Eve ate of his tree, they gave him the authority that they used to have. They no longer, because God had given them authority to rule the earth. God told them, go and rule the earth, have dominion over it. But when they ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they no longer were following God anymore. They disobeyed God. Therefore, now they were obeying Satan. So Satan became their ruler. And Satan did not give them dominion. Satan took the dominion to himself, right?
Yes.
The earth is not ours anymore,
Right.
right? We have to pay for our food, our water. I'm so glad he can't, take our air. We can breathe air still.
Well, they're thinking
It is
about it.
already.
They're
Polluting
thinking
the
about
air.
Polluting the air, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yes.
Okay, so in Job, now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. There's a congregation, and Satan came as the representative. And then the Lord says to Satan, "From where do you come?" Of course the Lord knows, but this is for our benefit, right? So Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro on the earth and from walking back and forth on it, which means from ruling the entire earth, right? In essence, that's what it means. I'm like, I have command, I walk back and forth, to and fro, and so forth. So, Lucifer went in the capacity as the head of the earth. And this also shows us who these sons of God were, in what capacity they came to this meeting. They came as representatives of other kingdoms scattered throughout the universe. And why did they come to present themselves before God? Why do you think?
Well,
You really want an answer?
Sure.
It was either Passover, Pentecost, or Tabernacles.
In heaven. Okay, I'd have to look into that. Because I don't know if that was created for us after, as the plan of salvation, or if it was actually happening in heaven too. Do you know?
The law
Does
of
anybody
heaven,
know?
The law has always been.
well, I believe that when Genesis, it's mentioned in Genesis 1:14, so those seasons in King James, it's
Mhm.
appointed time in Hebrew, they were established, all of them were established before human beings were created.
They were.
And yeah, you read about the fourth day of creation.
Okay.
So we're not gonna get into that right now, but that's what you'll find
Right.
there. But then when Moses was shown a pattern of what
Yes.
to make, he was shown a pattern of what's in heaven. So the worship
Okay.
system given to human beings at the time of the Exodus was patterned after that in heaven, which would have been perfect, which would have been the same worship system given to the earth before the fall. And just more or less alluded to, I guess you could say, the word appointed time is definitely there in Hebrew in Genesis 1:14.
Mm-hmm.
So what it was given to the earth before the fall.
Okay. And that's something that we have to look into. And that's something we can learn from you.
Well, I think it's really neat that you're pointing out that this in terms of Job 1, 6, and 7. And
Mhm.
so to me, that does look like it's an appointed time, just because, like you're saying, it's the representatives from the planets of the universe are
Mhm.
coming to meet
Yes,
with God.
yes.
To me, that's
That's an appointed
an
time.
appointed time.
Yeah, it's
So
like-
I think it's beautiful.
It's like the UN convening on a
Mhm.
certain time of the year, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Yes.
And so the scripture would be Isaiah 66, 22, 23.
Yes.
Yeah. So if the Sabbaths are going to be continued in heaven, so
Uh-huh.
it is
Yes.
possible that it was there in heaven before.
Mm.
Well, see, we have to understand, no doubt, the principle of the Sabbath was already there. See, one of the things we have to understand, when God, after 6 days of creation, when God created the seventh day was the Sabbath. Okay, He hallowed it and sanctified it. The reason I believe that God created that extra 24-hour time period as the Sabbath, if you notice, you don't have evening and morning on that day. You don't have light and darkness on that day. That day is pure light, but it doesn't deny the fact that it is still a 24-hour time period. When after Adam and Eve were created and everything was finished, then God saw everything that He had made, and indeed was very good, in verse 31 of chapter 1 of Genesis, and everything that He had created, it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Light and darkness was there on the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth and all the hosts of them were finished. And on the seventh day God ended His work which He had done, and He rested on the seventh day from all His work which He had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it He rested from all His work which He had created and made. If we notice on that seventh day, there's no evening or morning or light or darkness.
Amen.
And there's a, pardon?
Amen.
Yes, and the significance for that is that if we understand the true understanding, the true significance of that Sabbath, why did God create that extra seventh day, we will realize why there is no form of darkness in it at all. It's pure light. Even though we go through the night and darkness for the Sabbath, But what it's trying to convey here, that there's no form of darkness, and why is it? Because look, it says, and then God blessed the 7th day, sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work, which he had created and made. And then it goes through the whole history again. So we Sabbath keepers, or people that profess to be Sabbath keepers, they must understand clearly that the Sabbath was there to reflect totally the character of God. And how does the Sabbath reveal the character of God? It clearly shows that after God created everything within the 6th day, and then he blessed, and he said everything was very good. He puts this 24-hour time period to always remember, and then we go to Exodus chapter 20, always remember what? That God is the creator and never the destroyer. That is the seal, the significance of the Sabbath. That he is the creator, he created everything in its perfection, it was very good, and that if ever anything comes to mar that perfect work, including the human race, anything happens, always remember that God is the creator and somebody else is the destroyer, and he is responsible for this. That is the significance of that 7th day. That is the seal of God. That is what the true rest in God is. When we experience the true rest in God, then we are no longer, what? Thinking of him in any way that is not reflecting him as the creator. We don't mix him as the creator as well as the destroyer.
His title is creator, it's not creator destroyer.
Right.
That's right.
Yes. What did?
She said his title is creator, not creator destroyer.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right on, Donna. That's his title, creator, not creator and destroyer. That's why the Sabbath was there, to remember, because God knew what's going to happen. So to remember that when this happened, don't ever confuse me with the destroyer.
There was no death before sin.
Yes.
Right.
And how, and where is it that you saw the 24 hours?
Well, if you read that whole section for the 7th day, there is no light or darkness in there.
Mentioned.
It's
There's
not
no-
mentioned.
There every day is mentioned, and there was evening and morning the first day, the second day. But on the Sabbath it doesn't say, and there was evening and morning. It doesn't say that.
I
I always thought because of that, for that reason, that it was pointing toward the final 7th day, the 7,000.
No
people,
doubt, it does.
Where there will be no darkness.
But-
No, it does point
Right.
to that.
Yes.
Okay,
But,
that's where
but it does point, because see, if you take the 6 days of creation, and if we study it, and we might not be able to do it in this study we are doing now, but if you take the 6 literal days of creation and the 7th day, you will find it will totally fit with our world history of 6,000 years and the millennium.
Yes,
And
because
also one point.
yes.
Okay.
Well, I was just going to say that yes, creation is literal according to what we believe. Every day is 7, it's a week, and that's where the weekly cycle comes from. But there's a dual application where it's also a very concise history of the great controversy. So in the first 6,000 years, you've had light and darkness, God, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil going on side by side. But on the 7th day, there's only tree of life. There's only light.
Amen.
Okay.
And also in light of that, God only creates on daytime when there was light, and in darkness He doesn't create. So
I'll be
everybody
sharing
sleeps.
now.
So, you already did?
I have the material printed out to share with them, so we probably don't wanna
okay.
touch on that right now.
Okay.
So,
That's
that-
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Thomas.
You're ahead of us, so we'll have to catch up
Not
with
to
you.
just adjourn us, but I'll just say this, some Sabbath keepers only recognize the light portion of the day as the Sabbath.
worship.
Yes,
For worship,
yes,
because everybody
Oh.
sleeps. He turns off the sun.
Yes.
yes,
Mhm.
exactly.
Okay, so are you done with that
Yes,
part?
I am.
All right. I just wanted to go back again to that mount of the to that congregation in Job that we saw in Job 1, 6, and 7. And what I wanted to do was focus a little bit on the words, on one word there, the word present, where it says that the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came. Okay? And Satan also came among them. Satan also came among them. But if you look at the word present, the word is yatsab, which means to place, and then in parentheses it says anything so as to stay. To place anything so that it stays. Okay? Now, Gesenius Hebrew Chaldee lexicon says that yatsab also means to set oneself to take a stand, or to stand up, to stand by anyone. So this, when I learned this gave me a whole new understanding of what this meeting in heaven between the sons of God was, and when Satan also came, but Satan did not come to present. He did not come, the word means here to take a stand. The sons of God came to take a stand on the side of God. And Satan also came, but not to present, not to take a stand. Do you see that? Satan came, but he came as the accuser, as the adversary. Okay? So this gives a whole new understanding of that passage in Job. And then of course...
For the purpose of taking a stand for his particular position, since his government was different, or... I mean, why did he think he was even going to be there?
Satan. Well, he went there as the representative of the earth, because there was a meeting of heads of state,
Right.
and he was the head of the earth.
But did he come to take a stand for his position?
For his position. And then we see that. Do you want to open up Job 1? I don't have the whole
Yeah,
thing
it's
here.
here.
We see between the conversation going on that there is a debate about the law here, because it says, where is it? Job 1, 6 and 7. Okay. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves to Yatsab, okay, to take a stand before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" So Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job?" And the word servant here is very important, okay? That there is none like him on the earth, a blameless, and the word blameless here, I don't know if it's exactly the same word as the word perfect in
Some translation.
Ezekiel 28.
Ezekiel 28.
Some translation is perfect.
It's perfect in King
It says
James.
perfect in mine.
Yeah.
Okay, so Job
might be-
1, let's see. So the word here would be tamim, if
Yeah.
that's what
Same
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, a word perfect. The word is tam, complete, pious. So it's related to the word tamim. It comes from taman. So those are related words, and I don't understand the Hebrew. Eileen could help us understand that better. So he said, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there's none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that fears God and eschews evil?" Then Satan answered, so God is saying, have you considered Job? He's living by my law of agape love, okay?
Amen.
And then Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job follow you for no reason? You have made a hedge around him and about his house and about all that he has on every side, and you have blessed the work." So he's saying, you have rewarded him with all these things, so he's following my law. He's following you because you're rewarding him. So you see the nuances of the law going on in here?
Yes.
So does he follow you for no reason? You're rewarding him. You are using the same law as I am. Okay, So, and we could go more in depth about that, but yes.
Would you please give us the definition of yatsab again?
Yes. Yatsab. It means, and this is quotes, to place, and then in parentheses, anything so as to stay. So they wanted God to stay. It's a polemic, it's an election campaign kind of thing, a political thing going on, and they're saying, no, we want to elect God. We want him to be our ruler. So they came to stand up for him. Okay? They came to defend him. So, let's see, where are we now? Okay, so even though Lucifer coveted the position of lawgiver, he really did not have the ability to be a lawgiver, because it was God who created everything, and he designed everything intricately to be able to live for life, not for death. And life is conditional upon, for intelligent beings, it's conditional upon us living by the moral law of life, which is agape love. So if you take a battery operated toy, it only functions with the proper battery, you know. If you insert a different kind of battery, it's not going to function properly or at all. And so likewise, our battery, so to speak, our moral makeup really determines our life. And Lucifer's battery caused death, you know. And I'll explain a little bit once we go into Adam and Eve, what happened to them, how death came into being, you know, with my limited understanding of it. But so then all of this is involved in the way that Lucifer wanted to exalt his throne. So where does, you know, beauty of appearance come into this? It has nothing to do with it, really. It may have a little bit, but this wisdom has all to do with intellect, with what he had devised in his mind, and his pride. And then we're going to show how this pride came out of it. He also must have thought that his throne of iniquity was so brilliant, was something so brilliant, so wise, that it placed him on an equal footing with God, or even above. I will be like the Most High. So Ellen White says, yes?
I can't help myself. If you want to edit this out later,
No,
you can
that's
go
fine.
ahead and do that. But it just came to me like a bolt of lightning.
Okay.
The day that Satan came to present his law that it would remain was Pentecost, because the lawgiver, the giving of the law, is at Pentecost.
Oh. Okay.
So
pouring
you
out
can
his spirit.
cut that out if you
No,
want.
that's fine. I'm not cutting anything out. So be careful what you say. I'm only cutting out. Yes.
Reward and punishment.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying be careful what you say, because it's going to be on record.
See, no, that's why even on our website, what we have done, people have sent in things that are so derogatory,
And we never
and
take
we
it
have
out.
not removed it. It's still sitting there, because if what we believe has to apply there too. So
Amen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yes, we believe that, you know, God did not squash Lucifer, did not squash his attacks on him. He allowed him to do all that. So we're just following his example.
Ozzy, remember the question I asked you about how did that tree get there? Would you give us that explanation to everybody?
yeah, we will do that one in a study where we're going to work purely on the two trees.
Yeah.
We're going to spend, like we're spending all this time here, we're going to come and do the same thing in the garden.
Okay. So, how does pride come in, finally? Here's the question we were all asking. And I want to bring in a quote that we used before from Ellen White, where it says that traffic, it's from the Bible Commentary, Volume 4, page 1163, paragraph 7, where it said that traffic in this context denotes meant the corrupt principles of his government. But it also, she says, it denotes, after she says that, she says, it denotes the bringing of self-seeking into spiritual offices. Nothing in spiritual service is acceptable to God except the purposes and works that are for the good of the universe. To do good to others will redound to the glory of God. So what does the bringing of self-seeking into spiritual offices mean? How is it related to iniquity? And I think we can understand this better if we look at an example. So take the Pharisees. They were proud and filled with self-exaltation, and Jesus characterized them as workers of iniquity. So they're a really good example for us to look at. Through them, we should be able to recognize the real cause of Lucifer's pride. And I want to show you something that Ellen White says. She said, the principles this is from MB, Mount of Blessings, 79, paragraph 2. She said, the principles cherished by the Pharisees are such as are characteristic of humanity in all ages. Okay? Now that's a heavy phrase.
Painful.
I'm going to read it again. The principles cherished by the Pharisees are such as are characteristic of humanity in all ages. And that's because we ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The spirit of Pharisaism is the spirit of human nature, the fallen human nature. And as the Savior showed the contrast between his own spirit and methods and those of the rabbis, his teaching is equally applicable to the people of all time. Okay? In paragraph 3, she says, in the days of Christ, the Pharisees were continually trying to earn the favor of heaven in order to secure worldly honor and prosperity, which they regarded as the reward of virtue. Okay? At the same time, they paraded their acts of charity before the people in order to attract their attention and gain a reputation for sanctity. So, why were the Pharisees continually trying to earn the favor of heaven?
Do you want the reward for virtue?
In order to earn a reward for virtue. They believed that if they were virtuous, God would reward them with worldly honor and prosperity. Notice that this way of thinking is characteristic of all humanity in all ages. This is the spirit of human nature, okay, which we know is empowered by the spirit and wisdom of Satan. So the Pharisees believed that God's kingdom functioned by a merit and demerit system. They didn't understand God's grace. This one misunderstanding led them into the wrong path entirely. But God's agape love is impartial and unconditional. Merit or demerit do not come into play here. Right? You want to go on?
There is nothing we can do to earn or lose God's favor. His love for us is not based on how good or how bad we are. His love is based on who He is, and God is love. God simply loves us, period. God never rejects us. This is so because His character is unconditional and impartial. We are the ones that either accept or reject Him and His ways of life. God is absolute. This puts the ball in our court. From where did this concept of earning God's favor arise? It came from the throne of iniquity that devises evil by law. Lucifer rejected God's law of unconditional, impartial love. He rejected God's very essence and nature of agape love. And this rejection included a discarding of unconditional love.
So it became a conditional.
Wow.
Yes.
So God's love, when He gives, He does not expect return. And that the other law that the enemy
Yes.
gave is
Yes.
you give
in order to get something.
in order to get something. There's an agenda to it.
Yes.
See, like we could be tithing, we could be giving money to churches and whatever. And and can you imagine this teaching that is prevailing in Christianity too? That the more you give to God, the more God is going to give back to you.
The prosperity gospel, right?
See, but God's method is you give. No question or doubt, God wants us to give. Not that He doesn't want us to give. We should tithe, we should support ministries and whatever it is. You give. But don't give so that I'm going to expect this reward and financial blessings and all of this. The whole motivation is defeated. Go ahead, Donna.
You kind of get that idea though when you read Deuteronomy about the curses and blessings also.
Yes,
It gives that picture, that very picture of, you know, you're gonna do good, you're gonna be rewarded. It gives
Yes.
that idea in there.
If you interpret it through the mind of good and evil.
evil.
Exactly.
See, very important, Donna, what you brought out is, see, in Galatians 6, it clearly states, whatever man sows, so shall he reap. So if you sow to the Spirit, from the Spirit you will reap eternal life. If you sow to the flesh, you will reap destruction. So when it's laid out, the path of blessings and curses in Deuteronomy 28, we have to look at it in the light of either good or evil or agape love. So if we look at it on the basis of good and evil, you do good, God blesses you. You do bad, God curses
And
you.
that's why the Pharisees believed that way, right?
Because they're interpreting that passage with good and evil. But if you interpret that passage with agape love, then what God is stating, like I just said, if you want to give,
Walking away.
give. But don't expect a reward.
Give it because you want to give, not because
See?
you're trying to bribe.
So the
Remember the
blessing
word
is
bribe?
there.
Yes.
Yes.
See, so the blessing is there. You are getting the blessing, you are giving, you are getting the inherent in your giving is the blessing.
So it's,
But-
I'm sorry.
But the curse follows also the same way.
Yes.
So if I choose to go on the wrong path, I choose to go into good and evil, I choose to live by Satan's system, then in that system are the curses. So when Adam and Eve ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, God did not arbitrarily curse them. They went, even though the scripture reads like that, they went into the domain of the cursed domain.
Yes.
And God in pain and anger, pain and suffering is telling them, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. You're going to go through all this experience, not because God is punishing them. Even though it reads like that, and we
Yeah.
could interpret it like that, the same way we can interpret the blessings and curses.
So we can interpret the whole Bible through agape or through good and evil.
Yes, sounds
See?
good.
Good,
Excellent. Yes.
Did you want to say something? Agnes?
Yes, just real quick, as he said, inherent in your giving is the blessing, and that reminded me of Psalm 19, verse 11. It's speaking of the Torah, and it says, moreover, by them is thy servant warned, in keeping of them there is great reward.
There you
So
are.
it's inherent in the keeping.
Yes.
In keeping.
Yes.
That the reward is, because I heard a speaker, he was talking about people saying, well, I've been keeping all these things and I haven't received any rewards. It's-
Yes.
You're missing the point. It says in keeping of them.
Yes.
That's great.
See-
Just like if you take care of your health, you're going to be
Yes.
healthy, and that's your reward, right?
In fact, his example was, he said, Torah is like a garden. If you take care of a garden, then it reaps,
Yes.
you get the
The
you
blessings.
take care of the garden, it feeds you.
See, the Bible, look, there's no question we see in the Bible of reward. We do see of reward. We can interpret it as an arbitrary reward from God. But when you understand the principles, then you'll know how that reward works. It is not some arbitrary act of God. It is intrinsic or inherent in the choices that you are making. And that's why in Galatians it's so clear, whatever you sow, you will reap, good or evil, but not arbitrarily from God. It's the choices that you make. I hope we've clarified that.
Okay. So from here on, we see a series of consequences, one following another. So if Lucifer if the law that Lucifer devised was intrinsically antithetical, opposed to God's law, if it was intrinsically opposite to God's singleness, his unitary law, which was unmixed, indivisible, not divided between good and evil, of his law of unconditional love, agape love, then it stands to reason that if that Lucifer's law had mixed and opposite concepts and was divisible and conditional. If it was the opposite of God's law, then it was divisible and conditional. And a rejection of agape love meant that the principle that Lucifer introduced had to be diametrically opposed to grace. Grace is freely given without conditions. And so if you remove grace, what you have now is a system of merit and demerit. Now one has to earn their way to God and earn their way to heaven. One has to do something for it. Thus one has to deserve it. Now, the good of Satan's system works to earn points, and the evil works towards losing points. You see this? Mm-hmm. Losing points translates into punishment. So evil works have to be punished. So simply put, it's just a reward and punishment system. So here is where pride comes in terms of pride. Iniquity is focused not only on what I can do to earn something, a reward, but what I can do better than others as well, right? This system is the source of competition and pride, which results in selfishness. The system itself is the root of Satan's pride and self-exaltation. And he knew he was the highest angel in heaven. And when he was the highest angel in heaven, before he sinned, he had the same mind as Christ. So he was actually at the bottom. Do you see what I'm saying? He was the highest.
He had a servant mentality.
He had yes. He was as one that lived by God's agape love. He was humble just like Christ was humble. He took on the lowest position. But once iniquity was found in him, he was the highest, and he stayed there. And now he prided himself that he was the highest. Okay?
So